Welcome to Bitter or Better, real stories of divorce and resilience, the podcast that gets real about the messy middle of divorce and what it takes to come out stronger on the other side. I'm your host, Abby England, marketer, national board-certified health and wellness coach, and author of the upcoming book, Bitter or Better, and I've personally earned my divorce Kevlar. This podcast isn't legal advice. It isn't tips and tricks and don't forgets and hacks and how-tos. There's plenty of other podcasts out there interviewing lawyers, therapists, accountants, all sorts of divorce scientists. This podcast is raw, real conversations with everyday people who have jobs, kids, responsibilities, commitments, and yet they've weathered the heartbreak, rebuilt their lives, and found unexpected strength along the way. Because while divorce can break you, it can also make you better. You are not alone. Let's hear someone else's story and see what resonates.
Hi, I am Morli and I'm a single mompreneur.
What does that mean?
That means I got married a couple of years ago, and I've got 2 young boys that I pour all my love into. And the courage that it took to actually get unmarried is I took that courage to then fulfill my lifelong dream, which is to be an entrepreneur.
So what exactly do you do?
So I am the owner and CEO of an e-commerce skincare brand.
Hey, that seems like it would somehow align with your personal values.
Yes, my mission in life is to empower women. And through my brand, I help women relieve their skin insecurities like hyperpigmentation so that they can show up in the world in their most authentic and beautiful selves.
Oh, I love that. It sounds like confidence has been a journey for you.
Absolutely. Something that I have dealt with hyperpigmentation my whole entire life. Being able to help other women with their hyperpigmentation issues. The number one word that comes up when I talk to my customers is, this has helped me get my confidence back.
We're definitely going to talk about confidence here today. I think it's fitting that you're one of my first guests because in how we met. Can I have you share with our listeners how we met?
We have a mutual friend who is a fashion designer. She needed some models to display her beautiful clothing, and we met on a photo shoot.
So when people ask us, how do you guys know each other? There's no other way than to say we met on a photo shoot.
Yes, exactly.
You and I got really close because I remember I was in the muck of it and you were a few rungs above me on the divorce ladder and being like, it'll only get better one way or another. You're in the worst part of it. And it was so helpful.
Yes.
We're going to be getting into a fairly vulnerable chapter of your life. Why did you agree to sit down with me and open the book on this?
A couple of reasons. One is in your vulnerability is how you move past things. When you're constantly repressing things, they just get buried. But if you can actually be vulnerable and let them out, I think that's a way to heal and to move through the journey. The other reason is I think there's a lot of things that I've learned going through this process. If I can help someone that is in the pit, that is going through it, realize that there is so much beauty and growth and intentionality that you can have through the process of getting unmarried, I would love that. And if I had that when I was going through it, I know I would have benefited greatly from it.
You've certainly helped one. She's sitting in the chair next to you. So I'm hoping with this podcast, your story and strength and resilience resonates with others as well. So maybe let's start from the beginning. How did you and your former spouse meet?
Yeah, we met in grad school in Pennsylvania. I got there a couple of days early to just get settled. And the night before classes started, I had met a couple of people. And so we were hanging out at a bar. And one of the guys that I had met, my co-parent, was his roommate. So we showed up. We just immediately clicked together. There was just something about his energy that I remember in my head being like, okay, yeah, I like him. I like what he's got going on.
The laws of attraction kind of brought you together.
Yeah. It took us a year. We were in like a big friend circle of dating other people in the circle until we finally came together. But we were really good friends for that year before we finally got together.
What attracted you to each other?
Like I mentioned, his energy, but we also had very similar values. He is very close to his family. He is very rooted in his authenticity. And what I liked about him is that he just is very solid in who he is. He's very kind, a very intentional person. And he's also now the father of my children. And these are still the things that I still love about him and think that he is an excellent father. He just has a lot of care in him for other people.
You're gorgeous children, by the way. They're beautiful boys. So describe the family dynamic.
It continues to evolve. I call it like we're in a modern family where when we got unmarried, it was during the pandemic when we separated and we knew that we needed to have two different separate households. It was very fortuitous. A house in our neighborhood came up for sale. We decided to just go ahead and buy it. We're still married at the time and weren't sure if the separation would be permanent or not. But we said, you know what? It's still a good investment. If we end up reconciling, we could always set it up as a rental. And the place was literally across the street from the house that we had been occupying. Because of the pandemic and because my boys were 1 and 2, we had to do a lot of co-parenting together. So we did dinners every night through the pandemic. We went on trips together through the pandemic. We still acted as a very close family unit. We saw our boys every single day, even though we were physically living in 2 houses. And it actually was a blessing because during the pandemic, when someone was sick, it was a lot easier to quarantine than if we were stuck in one house. And that went on for 3 years. And then just recently, my co-parent has gotten engaged. He had met someone a year ago. He has gotten engaged and they have moved to a new house, which is only a mile away, but isn't that same convenience of being able to just run across the street to grab a pair of soccer cleats or something when you forget something. But also just mentally now there's another co-parent in the relationship. And so we are going through that transition right now.
Wow. Okay, I definitely want to circle back to that. Let's maybe rewind the clock. And what happened? How did the D word come up?
Yeah, we were married for 10 years. When I think back on our relationship, we met in grad school. We got married when we were 30. So we had this independent life through our 20s. We had careers. We had ambitions for careers. And coming out of grad school, we ended up moving out to Colorado for my job. And then I just became the main career person where fortunately I had opportunities to move abroad and then move back to the States. And my co-parent, he was like still trying to find that job or that career that he wanted to invest in. And so we did a lot of moving. And I've always been very focused and very motivated. And in my corporate job, I put it first a lot when we were married. And it required me to be on the road a lot, especially when we lived in Singapore for a couple of years. I was probably gone 3 out of 4 weeks. I was being fed because I was getting all of these different relationships and experiences and stuff. And I think it was hard on my co-parent, who is a natural extrovert in his personality and really needs to be around people, and felt himself struggling in our marriage because I just was gone a lot.
Okay.
I think it was just a fundamental difference in expectations of what it was to be in a marriage. And I can't speak to him and what his experience was, but for me, my expectation was to have a marriage where I was allowed to have a lot of independence and a lot of opportunity to focus on things outside of the marriage. That expectation, it was hard. I was not being met. I would get a lot of guilt. I would get a lot of feeling like I wasn't being supported in my career because of being gone a lot. And even when I was physically there, a lot of times mentally, I would still be there. And then when we had children was where it really came to the forefront, because then I had to focus on that. Mm-hmm. And I really struggled where I felt like I wasn't able to put myself first in my marriage. I had to put the kids first. I had to put my co-parent, I had to put our marriage, I had to put my job, and then I put myself. And I fundamentally was not happy in that situation because I felt like I kept giving, and giving, but I had this constant feeling of I wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. And so ultimately that feeling of not feeling enough was what made me decide that, this isn't serving me in this relationship.
That's a lot. That's a lot of feelings to have while still being a mom and a wife and a successful corporate director at the time. So mentally you made the decision, but how did it get spoken into the air? How did it come to fruition?
Looking back, we were in couples therapy from early on in our marriage. And in the beginning, it was like, it was a lot of prophylactic. We did a lot of counseling when we got engaged, just because I think that's always a really good thing to do, is to go through premarital counseling and making sure that you're thinking about the right things when you're entering a marriage. And so we had this culture, fortunately, of honest communication, but honest communication with the support of someone. And we struggled with some intimacy problems. And I think a lot of it was just with me being gone was just a common theme of like, he wasn't connected to me. And the other thing too is I am an introvert. So I would be on these business trips. I'd be giving everything I had. I would get home and I would need to go into my shell for a little bit. And it just didn't match what he needed, which is I had been gone and he needed me to come back and we needed to connect. And luckily we had a relationship where we could be brutally honest with each other through using our therapist. The kids were really what magnified it. And I just remember being 6 months pregnant with my second child and sitting in the therapist's office and him saying, I just don't have these romantic feelings. I've lost my intimate connection with you. I don't have them anymore. That was a wake-up call for me of, okay, what do it got? Like, it was one of those, what do I do now? Like,
so you have one child already, there's maybe one-ish, and then you're pregnant.
Not even one.
Not even one. Okay. And then 6 months pregnant with your second child. And you're in the therapist's office and your husband tells you what?
He lost the connection. He said, I have love for you, but I'm not in love, right? He just, that connection that we had, he just had lost it.
If you don't mind, let's go back to that moment. What were you feeling when you heard that?
Being pregnant and having all of these hormones. And I was in that nesting phase where all I wanted to do was save my marriage because I'm about to have his child. We've been married for 10 years. And the man says he's no longer connected to me. It was just fear and panic. Yeah, fear is the only thing. Like, what do I do with this? I'm about to have a child. It's a very distinct memory. And then there's still trauma around that marriage. I think it's also like a feeling of being abandoned.
Man, the intent of the podcast is to have people share their stories so that others either feel a sense of connection to it or feel a sense of gratitude, maybe in their own situation. And when I hear that you are about to have 2 young kids and about to go through a divorce, I can't imagine what that must have felt like.
At the time, it was this feeling of, what do I do now? Like feeling very lost, very sad, very just everything, angry, and just scared. I don't know what to do.
Yeah. Unfortunately, when it happens, you still have to go through the process, and it sucks and it's emotional and you're angry and scared and anxious and nervous, but you still have to go through the process of divorce. So then what was the next step?
For me, I needed to understand while he was being brutally honest. And as hard as it was to hear that, I am grateful that he was honest. He didn't stuff it down. He didn't try to spare it. Again, that's his thing. He is authentic and brutally honest to a fault, where you're like, okay, that was a punch in the face, but he was just speaking his truth. And so I needed to have radical empathy and try to put myself in his situation and try to find some kind of understanding and acceptance. And the thing that I am grateful for is that through the whole thing, he was transparent, he was honest, he was sticking to his truth. I will always be grateful because we never lost trust. He never cheated on me. He never lied to me. He never buried his feelings and gave me the silent treatment. We went to therapy every single week and it was brutal, but every single time showed up and he said exactly what he was thinking and feeling. And I'll always be grateful for that because I never had to wonder. I never had to guess. I never had to worry about, is there something else going on? And that is a gift because we could get to the crux of the crux. We didn't have to fight up here. We could fight at where the thing was. And again, doing it in the safety with a therapist who had been with us for a couple of years till then and knew everything. It gave me the strength of, okay, as long as I keep showing up and doing the hard thing of being there and hearing it, and then also doing my journey. And he said, I'm going to let you make the decision about our relationship. So I don't know if this was out of cowardice or this was out of compassion, but he said, I'm not going to ask for a divorce. I will stay if you want to stay in this marriage. I want this to be a mutual decision or at least have you in it. And so I said, I want to try as hard as we can to see if we can get the connection back. And so we worked 6 months, probably 6 months to a year, where we tried a lot of different things. And I feel like I can truly walk away and say we tried everything. And again, just to be radically candor, like we tried opening up our marriage to see if there were other places that we could get connection. It did not serve me, especially being a pregnant 6-month-old. I was not going to go out and find other partners. Ironically, my co-parent did not have any trouble. That's not me to judge on that relationship. I closed our marriage and said, I'm not consenting to this. I'm not actually comfortable. And so we tried it with the closed marriage again. It wasn't working. He came back to the table and said, this isn't working. I'd like to open it up again. And at that point, I felt like I had tried everything. And I wanted to then put myself first and say, this isn't serving me. I will be better served to be on my own, for us to be unmarried.
Wow. You really did try everything.
We did.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. You mentioned wanting to put yourself in his shoes or be empathetic to the situation. And the fact that you would experiment with opening up your marriage when you're 6 months pregnant, I can't think of anything more empathetic or compassionate. I cannot imagine what that was like for you. It was like feelings on top of feelings on top of feelings.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I have distinct memories of after my child was born, being up in the middle of the night, feeding my child and having tears running down, like rocking my child and like seeing this beautiful human and just feeling so like scared and so vulnerable, but feeling so much love at the same time. Yeah, feelings on feelings, but just also, I'm going to get through this. Like I have what's important, which is I've got these two little humans and I've got myself and I've got choice here, which is, again, what I'm grateful for, where I eventually said, I think we've tried everything. I am not interested in opening up in an open marriage. It doesn't serve me and what I need. I would like to explore separation now.
Thank you for boldly sharing that. You did have choice. So you made the decision that, okay, we're going to try separation. What did that look like?
And this was hard too, because it wasn't like a clear, okay, we're separated, he moved out. Again, this was like early 2020, late 2019. We still kept sleeping in the same bed. we still kept going on, and we would be coming back up to therapy, and our therapist would be like, you need to separate more.
You need to get out of the same bed.
Yeah. And so then we're like, okay, so then he moved upstairs. We've got a 1-year-old and we've got a newborn. We're all hands on deck. And it just happened slowly by slowly where I felt like we kept getting separated over and over again at each kind of separation phase. And so then he moved out of the room. And then eventually, like a couple months later, the house came up. He moved out of the house, but we were still having dinner together every night. We were still hanging out with the kids together. We were going on vacations together. We were like staying in the same room together. Then we got separate rooms. Then we started doing optional dinners. We started handing off the kids a little bit more. And so it happened like that. When he eventually met someone, I think that was where it was like, okay, we can't keep doing this, right? And the whole entire time, our therapist was like, you're not separating enough. You're not separating enough. But I don't regret any of that. It was a 2 to 3 year process where I feel like now we are, obviously he is engaged to someone else, like we are separated. But for the kids, I think it was really nice for them to feel like we were still a family.
Mm-hmm. So they experienced a gradual progression of separation.
Yeah. And they're young enough that I just don't even know if they remember. Mm-hmm. And they were like 1 and newborn when he ended up moving into a different house. They're 5 and 7 now. It's only now that I think they're starting to ask the question, where I just think they thought it was normal that everyone had multiple houses, and it was just, that was what their normal was, and everyone just went back and forth, and it wasn't anything unusual.
That is all that they know, and they don't know any differently. You talked about different gifts throughout this. That might also be a gift to the children, is they didn't experience the separation as maybe like someone older than 6 years old. You are very intentional with the language that you use and don't use. What is this nomenclature that you've adopted, and why is it so important?
Really, the separation was meant to be a trial, right? To see if this is what serves us and then figure out the next. When I was in the separation and I was living on my own and I had then decided to put myself first, it felt right. He was allowing me to come forward and say, okay. So I was the one after about 6 months separation being like, I would like to go ahead and finalize this divorce, where I reluctantly was like, gosh, I don't know if I really want to be a single mom to 2 little humans. I actually really loved the independence. It felt like I was coming into my own. And so I said, let's go ahead and finalize a divorce. I think we would have been comfortable living in a still married but separate households so we could do whatever. We didn't think society could understand that situation. Our families couldn't understand that situation, where we still had a lot of love for each other. We still were a family, but we had an opportunity to create connections with other people. People struggled with it. And so we said, let's finalize it. Society isn't ready for these gray type marriages. When we were going through it, we had the gift of being very intentional about it because we had worked through all the emotions already, so we could be very intentional. We were intentional with our words. So we don't say divorce. We say we got unmarried. We don't call each other ex-husband, ex-wife. We say co-parents, right? Because these are words that we associate more with what our truth is. And kind of we had 3 mantras of coming out of our marriage, which one was the kids always come first. So every single decision has to be made because our relationship now centers around that. While we are friends, that's not the primary relationship we have anymore. We are parents. 2 was you are responsible for your own happiness. We gave each other blessings because he actually was like, when we were still separated, we weren't even officially divorced. He wanted to go out and start dating again. And I was like, you don't need my blessing. You were in charge of your own happiness. I don't want to ever feel like I am responsible anymore. And in that same way, I also became a lot more not selfish, but full of self, where I was like, I'm going to start prioritizing myself and I'm going to ask for what I need, where before I didn't feel I had that power. And so I tell people there is nothing like a legal document that says you have 50-50 custody to have a 50-50 partner, where I didn't feel like we had that in our marriage. And granted, it was still the very, very early stages where a lot of it depended on me physically to help my kids. But it's one of the things I absolutely love about our relationship is I have a true 50-50 parent, and it is glorious. And it's not just the physical take caring of them, but it's also the mental load gets shared 50-50 between us.
And that is not how it typically, I don't know, I don't have children, but in listening to other friends, and please elaborate on this, that percentage is not 50-50 when you were married.
Yes. And not through any fault of his own. I think we also get programmed as women and as mothers that we have to carry a lot more of the mental load that then gets converted into the physical load. Even this morning, I had on my list, I had to call their dentist to get like this thing screened. I just procrastinated, and my co-parent was like, have you called the dentist? And I was like, no. Can you do it? And he said yes. And he took care of it. And he's actually been to the last 2 or 3 dentist appointments. And I always joke when I meet a guy that's, I'm a total 50-50. And I was like, what is your kid's dentist's name? Can you answer that? And in every single situation, they have had no idea. And I was like, nope, come back to me when you know your kid's dentist's name.
That's a good
And when you've gone to the dentist with your kid, then you can prove to me that you are a true 50-50 parent. Yes. And then the third thing is preserve wealth. We did not do lawyers. We did not do mediation. We had a counselor, which I honestly thought that she was not even worth the value because we actually told her what we wanted. And it was very clear we're splitting everything 50-50. We structured things in a way that we had stuff set aside for the kids. We don't have to nickel and dime each other. There is extra stuff that's been set aside that will pay for all the kids that we have 50-50 ownership to. I only have to worry about myself and my livelihood, which gave me the courage and the strength to transition out of corporate and to go after my dream and be an entrepreneur. And I don't think I would have done that had I not had the courage of, I can do this, I can do hard things. I just got out of a 10-year marriage and I am thriving. I didn't have the financial fear of leaving a very stable job that was not serving me to then take the roller coaster that is entrepreneurship.
So you took us through the 3 pillars that you and your co-parent agreed upon as you're going through this process. What tools did you personally lean into during this time?
I continued to go to therapy. There was a lot of feelings, right? I mean, there's so much coming out of a 10-year marriage and a relationship. So we had our couples therapist, but then I went to another woman that was then my therapist that was just focused on me. So that was really important. I decided that I was never, ever going to be in a situation where I put myself last. And so I really did a lot of work on what does that mean to put myself first. And for me, it was really understanding what my priorities in life were. And it also coincided with me turning 40 and having this kind of midlife reset. I'm going to invest in my wellness. I'm going to invest in my relationships. One of the things that was really eye-opening was because I traveled so much and my co-parent was the extrovert, he defined our friendship circle. He was the one that was like, oh, I made dinner plans with whatever. And I was just tagging along. Coming out of the marriage, and it was also the pandemic, I lifted my head and I had no one. I had no friends. Luckily, I had family that's local that really supported me, but I didn't have the girlfriends. And I think it was just because I didn't invest in the girlfriends. I let it all happen. And so one of the things that I did was I invested a lot in girlfriends, in relationships, in finding people that were in the same storyline. And I honestly think, Abby, I manifested you, right? I think this was what, 22?
2022.
22, yeah. So like I had been 1 year divorced and I was really just craving beautiful girl friendships. And you came into my life and we just bonded over these life experiences, right? I did a lot of work on that. And then I promised myself that I would always explore and grow and have an open mind and know that, yeah, if I could get through this, like I can get through anything. For my 40th and to celebrate getting unmarried, I decided to take a trip to Tanzania and climb Kilimanjaro and do this life-altering safari. It was also the 10-year anniversary of my dad passing, and he actually grew up in Tanzania. And so it was just like these beautiful moments of rebirth and re-establishing myself and just saying, okay, this is a new life, but it's a life that's filled with joy and love and compassion and just making sure that I'm spending like the 2,000 weeks that I have left on this earth.
Yeah, weeks left.
And in a very intentional, beautiful way that serves me.
If you could go back or talk to the you that was in bed, crying, scared, nervous, anxious, angry, what would this tell that Morli now?
It's so interesting. I would just give her a big hug and I would just say, you're going to just flower through this, right? And I knew this at the time. I'm going to be okay. I have what's important here. I'm going to be okay. But I think if I could go back and just wrap my arms around that person and just pour as much love and say, yeah, this is important. This is growth. This is what you need to understand what is truly important to you and to live a life full of joy and love in the best way you can. I think it would just be to give my love. And I knew intuitively at that time because I had been in other relationships, nowhere as long and as intense as a 10-year marriage, but I always came out of them in this renaissance where it became like fuel of this rebirth and this regrowth. I knew fundamentally that would happen. I felt in control of my relationship with the co-parent at every moment. We never lost trust. I was never wondering what was going on. And I will always be grateful for that because that took a lot of courage on his part to show up and be honest the whole time, because it could have been a very different situation if he wasn't as courageous.
Yes, honesty is a gift. I'll say in my own situation, he was not truly honest. He never mentioned anything about an affair. And it was all these other reasons. You're not this anymore. You're not that anymore. You're not this. You're not that. For months, I carried around so much guilt and pain. Oh, Abby, if you would have done this, or if you would have done that, and just second guessing myself all the time. And it wasn't until I found out it was an affair that I was like almost freed of those feelings of inadequacy, in which I could say, oh no, it's not me. It's about you. As brutal as maybe it was to hear whatever he said, hopefully for some listeners, the honesty is a gift as well.
Yeah. And I think that's why my co-parent and I continue to have a very positive, strong relationship. And through every step, like, again, I am grateful that in therapy, he warned me that he was going to propose. And so when he did get engaged, we have a lot of mutual friends reaching out and being like, how are you doing? Are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. I am very happy for him. This is what he needs to be happy. And selfishly, I need him. I want him to be happy because of our two little humans. And so I am grateful that I've never been blindsided. And that's a true gift that he gave me. And it also forced me, then I had to show up also and truly think about what I needed. And again, like mantra number 2 is you are responsible for your own happiness and your own self. You go get it, and you've got the blessing of the other person to go after it.
Going through this process, what values crystallized for you? You mentioned your priorities. What became crystal clear as going through this process?
Living your truth, right? And being in your authentic self and what is serving you. A key thing was when I looked at my corporate job, I loved that how stable it was, but it was sucking the life force out of me. And I was still traveling every other week. Every single time I had to get on a plane and leave those 2 babies, a part of me was like being wrenched out of me. I didn't want to do that anymore because I had the courage from leaving the marriage. I was like, I can leave this. I'd always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I did it cold turkey saying, I'll figure it out. I don't know what that means, but I'll figure it out. Making sure that always are leading with those priorities of putting myself first, that it's not selfish to have a nanny and have a Saturday morning where I can rest or go to yoga and have someone else watch my children. These are important things because you can't put yourself first and you can't make sure that you are full and whole. Then you can't show up for the people that need you to be full and whole.
So you come out of this as a Renaissance woman. What gifts or opportunities did your divorce bring you?
Just the courage to go out there and take risks and do things. If I had not have gone through the divorce or the unmarrying, I would have never left my stable corporate job and gone after being an entrepreneur. And I absolutely love it. And it's my destiny. And I love the control. I am there for my kids. I have time to pour into my relationships, and I can live my mission, which is to empower women through that, which I don't feel like I've ever lived in true alignment with all of that before when I was married.
How does it feel to now have multiple sources of fulfillment, to live in your truth? What does that feel like?
It's all a constant struggle, right? I still also give myself grace that I'm human. So like when my co-parent did get engaged, there are feelings of grief and annoyance. And like now we've got a co-parent 3-way. There's still moments of that, but there's also this underlying contentment of I'm not reaching for an end. I'm living in the everyday and appreciating it. I think the resilience to get up each day and go through the hard things and stay present and in the now and to process the feelings that come with being human, I wouldn't be as equipped had I not gone through that difficult transition, but very beneficial transition.
Resilience is the theme of this podcast. So thank you for being my friend, but then also for coming on and sharing all of this.
You are very welcome. I think this is an important thing to share our stories with other people. I remember going through it and just looking for any point of connection or any point of commonality. I listened to a lot of podcasts when I was going through my divorce, and there wasn't like a perfect match. So again, listening to these stories and being able to see, okay, here's where I resonate, here is where I am. And then seeing that people have moved through it and they are in a much better position. I think that's really important.
Thanks for listening to Bitter or Better, where we turn heartbreak into healing and survival into strength. As Brené Brown says, vulnerability is the last thing we want to show, but the first thing we look for in others. That's what this is all about. Real people showing up, sharing their stories, and reminding the rest of us that we're not alone. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who might need to hear it too. And remember, you have a choice: bitter or better. See you next time for more real stories, real people, and real resilience.